Hello! You're listening to Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today, a weekly podcast designed to bring you snippets of encouragement to help you as you go about your day. I'm Jenny Guy, your host. What do you do whenever you hear the command, ready, set, go? More than likely, you get into position to engage in a contest of some kind. But suppose you heard, ready, set, receive instead. What do you think you are supposed to do then? Today, taking a couple of stories from the Old Testament, we'll explore how seeing answers to prayer requires us to get into position to receive. Let's get started. Last week, I talked about Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, who God told to stand still and watch as the Lord fought his battle for him. Jehoshaphat obeyed God and saw the miraculous answer to his prayer unfold before his eyes. As I continued to think about that story, the notion that Jehoshaphat put himself in the position to see God answer his prayer wouldn't go away. In fact, that idea grew until it became this episode, whose theme is putting ourselves into position to see the answers to our prayers. That's why I called today's episode, Ready, Set, Receive. I found another story in the Old Testament that also illustrates this idea of getting ready and set to receive the answer to a prayer. It is one of the stories about Elijah, a mighty prophet of God who lived during the reign of King Ahab of Israel. Let me set the stage for the part of the story that I want to emphasize today. Ahab and his wife Jezebel had promoted the worship of the pagan idol known as Baal throughout Israel. God was displeased over this idolatry, and he instructed Elijah to prophesy to Ahab that there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word. Now it's 3.5 years later, and Elijah has just defeated the priests of Baal in a challenge to show who was truly God. Elijah tells Ahab to go, eat, and drink, for there is the sound of heavy rain. For the portion of the story that I want to emphasize today, I'd like to read the New International Version's account of how Elijah put himself into position to see the answer to his prayer. I'm reading from the book of 1 Kings, the 18th chapter, 42nd through 46th verses. So Ahab went off to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel, bent down to the ground, and put his face between his knees. Go and look toward the sea, he told his servant, and he went up and looked. There is nothing there, he said. 7 times Elijah said, Go back. The 7th time, the servant reported, A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea. So Elijah said, Go and tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you. Meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds. The wind rose, a heavy rain started falling, and Ahab rode off to Jezreel. The power of the Lord came on Elijah, and tucking his cloak into his belt, he ran ahead of Ahab all the way to Jezreel. I love this story because there are several instructive and encouraging points in it. I'm sure that as you read it, you'll come up with other points besides the ones I'm about to mention. First, notice that while Elijah was waiting for the rain, he kept himself in an attitude of prayer. But that wasn't all he did. As he prayed, he watched. Elijah did this by periodically sending his servant to look for signs of rain. Elijah prayed and watched until his answer came. We don't know what Elijah prayed. I'm guessing that he was probably thanking God for the rain. After all, Elijah had told Ahab that he heard the sound of heavy rain. So, because Elijah was sure that the answer was on the way, he probably wasn't asking God again for something that he was already preparing to do. Second, Elijah didn't give up. He persevered in watching for the answer to his prayer. 7 times he sent his servant to look for a rain cloud. I think I might have been tempted to give up after the 4th or 5th time I had been told that there were no clouds in the sky. Yes, giving up would also have meant swallowing my pride, as well as taking back the bold statement to Ahab about rain coming. But Elijah didn't do that. He persevered, and his example stands for all of us who are tempted to give up before we receive the answers to our prayers. He kept praying and watching until his servant reported that he saw a cloud as small as a man's hand rising above the sea. Third, Elijah didn't need a grand sign to persuade him that the answer to his prayer was on the way. A cloud the size of a man's hand is small, very small. But that small sign was enough to convince Elijah that his answer was coming. Now, let's look again at Jehoshaphat and what he did to get ready to receive the answer to his prayer. First, Jehoshaphat and his army prepared to fight. They put on their armor. They took up their weapons. They got into formation and marched to the battlefield. Second, once Jehoshaphat and his army and the priests and the Levites reached the battlefield, they took up their positions and stood firm. Even though Jehoshaphat had been assured that God would fight this battle for him, Jehoshaphat and his men still had to face their enemy. When they were in place, Jehoshaphat gave his people 2 key instructions. They were to have faith in the Lord God, and they were to believe his prophets. The admonition to believe God's prophets refers to the encouraging word that Jahaziel, one of the Levites, spoke after the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. That encouraging word was a prophecy which said that even though Jehoshaphat and his army would have to face their enemy, they wouldn't have to fight. As we consider these 2 stories, what can we take away from them and apply to our situations today? The first takeaway is this: Elijah and Jehoshaphat prayed, believed, and expected God to answer their prayers. And the second takeaway is Elijah and Jehoshaphat demonstrated their faith in God by their actions. Because their circumstances were different, their actions were different also. But the bottom line is they both got ready and set to receive. As I close, let me ask you, are you ready and set to receive your answer? I hope you heard something today that has encouraged you and possibly given you something new to think about that will motivate or inspire you. If you would like a PDF copy of the show notes for this episode of Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today, visit my website at jguypublisher.com. New episodes are published each week on Wednesday. I hope you'll join me for another installment of Everyday Encouragement, Timeless Truths for Today. Well, that's it for now. Until next time, be encouraged.